not family because they don't live around here, but friends, parents of friends would work with me, right? Or would assume that, oh, I know Matt, and you know, he's a nice guy, I've known him, you know, for a while, and give him a call, and listen. That wasn't the case. I would see my friend's parents' house or my friend's house, you know, going on the market or going out with people to go looking for houses, and it kind of dawned on me that I can't assume, all right? The other thing that I used to do is when those people would call me, I wouldn't bring my arsenal of my listing presentation. I would say, oh, this is, you know, I don't want to embarrass myself and have to go through this and talk about RE/MAX and talk about myself and do all the stuff that helps us get the listing. And that was a problem. I'll never forget, it was the first listing presentation I had on a really nice house in Trumbull, and it was a relocation deal. And I'd never done a relocation deal before, and there's a lot of paperwork which I was trying to work through, but when I met with the people, I didn't bring my marketing material. I knew them, I grew up with them, and fast forward 2 weeks, they emailed me back and said, you know, appreciate your time, but we went with another agent and I spoke to the relocation company and I asked why, and they said, well, they had a pre-listing presentation, they had a marketing plan, and I just went over to go talk to them. So that was probably years 1 through 3, where I, didn't, every single time I come with my resume. That's something that I started doing about 5 years ago, or 6 years ago. I put together a professional resume as if it was a job interview. And it talks about some of my accomplishments at work, but more, it humanizes it and talks about college degree, college accomplishments, just like a business resume, but kind of tweaked towards real estate. And it's one of the first things that I hand over, and I, in advance of a meeting, I'll send it over and just ask people to review it. So, if you come from a different professional industry, it just helps, because there's a lot of us out there, and there's a lot of us that don't respect the job as you should. And I think, you bring some sincerity to it when you have a resume put together. So that's one of my first talking points, was never assume that just because somebody knows you or knows of you that they're going to work with you, and you've got to go after them, and you just can't worry about being annoying. We're in the business of self-promotion. So it's constantly dripping people. The other, what was the second part? Oh yeah, open houses. The first years, and still to this day, I do pretty well at open houses, and starting out, that was the only way I got business. Because at 23, nobody was buying a house that I knew. So I had to go outside of my sphere of influence at that point, and I would sit at open houses and I would ask agents in the office, if I could do something for them, and everybody was generous, and they would put the ad out there, and I would sit there. I accepted what people told me as they came in the house as the truth, and it wasn't. All right. Many times, if I would have kept that database and just stayed in touch with them, offering them pertinent, important information, not, hey, are you ready to buy a house, but hey, this great investment deal just came on the market, or this house sold in 2 days in Trumbull, thought you may just want to be up on that information. I probably would have done a lot more business earlier on, but I just assumed if somebody said, oh, we're just out here taking a look, that was a lie. They're there for a reason. Whether they're going to, a lot of times they're going to sell their house, and they want to see, once they tell me, oh, we're just, we're thinking about, we're just taking a cruise, right? They're really testing us. Because if we just step back and don't tell them about the house or tell them any information, they're going to say, well, he'll do the same thing in my house if, somebody comes in kind of disguised like that. So not taking everybody serious, and kind of, I was always waiting for, oh, we're unrepresented, we are looking to buy a house and we're pre-approved. Those were the 3 key words, phrases that I was looking for, and I was like, okay, this was a success. I bet you everybody that walked through those open houses in years 1 through 5, okay, maybe 75% of those people bought or sold a house within the next 5 years. So it's kind of having the foresight to say, okay, if it's not today, tomorrow, it's next year or the year after. And that was always a scary part for me, is that I don't think there's anything, and you may disagree, but I don't think there's anything that I could do right now that would ensure me a sale next week. But it was building the pipeline, building the database, having the email, and I got away from it, but I used to do marketing, emails weekly. And I would just build that database with all the people that came to the open house. So kind of bring closure to that is take everybody serious, get as much information as you can, and stay in touch with them until they tell you not to.
And it's, if I could just jump on the open house thing, I mean, it's there will be people that will absolutely just say it's a total waste of time. And if you're gonna go in and not approach it like it's an opportunity and to try to get some information and try to make a good impression with them, then it will absolutely be a waste of time.
On the open house thing, and this is
Yeah.
something that I did early on that I never ever do again, I take the reverse approach. I was told, that, and I didn't know, that, open houses are a waste of time and, nothing, you don't sell the house at the open house. And so I can't believe I actually used to say that to sellers. I would sit there and say, yeah, it's really for us to meet new people, and that is nonsense. When I go on a listing presentation, I am an advocate of open houses. I love them. When somebody walks through the door, whether they're unrepresented or represented or not, I can tell them about your house. Once they leave that door, I can't. So it's a good way for me to get in touch directly, and they love it. And then they'll say, well, we're privacy issues, we don't want the neighbors coming in, and then you're like, okay, I have a break on a Sunday. But a lot of agents are telling the story that you don't sell the house at the open house. I would never utter those words anymore.
Have you ever sold it from an open house?
Oh, yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, it's, agents come in and they show your listing and they've never been there. They don't know much about the house. We can't talk to the buyers in, but if their buyers come to an open house, we can give them all the knowledge they want. So I think that's something that has changed in my mind over the years is I wait for that question and absolutely love them. So, do I? No. There's one other.
So Matt, I don't see you doing Connecticut Post ad if you're doing open houses. So how are you handling your open houses?
If I have a sense that the seller checks the Connecticut Post, generally an older seller, I'll put the ad in. If I get questioned on it, my line is that, certainly do it, and I'll spend the money on it, that's not a problem. But from a practicality standpoint, if we're relying on somebody to wake up Sunday morning, open the paper and say, hey, this house is for sale, I think I'm gonna go and take a look at it, probably not our buyer. We want people that are getting pinged right away on Zillow, Trulia, or Realtor.com, and we're gonna ramp up that marketing as much more effective. But for the $80 or $90 it costs to do the open house stuff, even the Facebook, I also lead with, I've got the largest social media advertising campaign out of anybody, and I could show you the analytics that it works, that kind of stuff. I don't get questions on the Connecticut Post stuff anymore.
Well, and I only point out, because you guys would know, and if you ask me, does Matt do open houses, and I would say to you, he does, but you wouldn't know by looking at the Connecticut Post that he does, because he knows what Zillow and Trulia will bring for traffic, because people will show up with a Zillow open house schedule, and they'll look at open house in here. So that's where so many people are going.
Where I lose out, though, to that point, is if you look who advertises, it's the people that get a lot more listings than I do, and listing opportunities. So if you have a presence in that Connecticut Post, and I've struggled with this because it's very expensive and I don't see the immediate return, I think it's more to get selling clients than to get people at that open house. So.
Yeah, understand.
Are we good on that topic?
Yeah.
All right. One thing that I would say that I need to do more of and continue doing that really helped me early on was I did a lot of condo work early on. It was just kind of I gravitated to it. My clients were, that kind of seemed to be an easy transition where people would reach out to me. So then I started realizing that, condos that are FHA approved are a lot easier to sell. So let me look on the website and see which ones are FHA approved, and then cross-reference it with a mailing database. And I would mail to those complexes and say, hey, something along the lines of your condo's value and marketability is at its highest point while you're FHA approved. It doesn't last forever. This complex expires at such and such a date. Those are far and few right now, but you can find some and just stay on top of it. And I did get a fair amount of listings, and people hang on to those pieces of paper. I got one 5 years later. When I first started, I lived in Far Mill River in Stratford, big condo complex, and I must have sent a flyer that said like the realtor next door, and I offered them a discount on the commission, and the lady 7 years later held on to that piece of paper and called me back, and I said, well, when I offered that discount, I wasn't as busy as I was now, but I'm still going to honor it, so you're going to get a heck of a deal. and she didn't list with me. I don't think they listed. I don't know what happened, but mailers work, and if anybody says otherwise, then they're wrong. And what I find is that people that are competing for listings in, Trumbull, Shelton, and Monroe, maybe someone's a referral from a friend, somebody they saw, someone they might know. That third person is whoever sends the most stuff to the house, and that's why I think a lot of well-known people get a lot of opportunities, and others wonder, myself included, wonder why. And it's farming different areas, but staying consistent and doing it every single month or every 2 weeks, or spending that money. And I think if your postcard's hanging around there quite a bit, that you're going to get a call.
Great.
Any questions?
So let's just talk about your use. You use social media as well as anybody. So just what are your, and I know you keep building your database, and I know you put stuff out. So just what things do you think are helpful, just especially getting started? I mean, you've heard me say, market knowledge is critical. So you've got such knowledge because you've been in this game, and people can go learn a market. You can go in the next 30 days and pick a town and know everything that's on the market. Then you need to be able to continue to do stuff. But where do you, just talk about social media.
Sure.
And,
So on the listing side of it, it's easy. And on the buying side, there's things that you can do. On the listing side, anytime I sign up a listing and the photographs come back in, I will put it on my business page, but I'll subliminally tag my personal page, which has a lot more followers at this point, as contact listing agent at Matt Nuzie for more information or showings. And what I try to do is just give people something, hey, not on the market yet, and then a brief description. I think the most important thing that I see other agents trying to do with social media that I don't think is so successful is treating it not as a professional platform where they write a million exclamation points, or there's the grammar. I think it just comes across as real sloppy. And I've seen a lot of newer agents that are getting into the business try and use social media, and it's in a very unprofessional way. I think it comes off as kind of foolish. So I try and keep it, only professional pictures on there. Nice description, enticing, brief. But then I boost every post, and that's where you can limit your cost. And for say $50, you can pick the towns you want it to hit. So anybody that signs on will see this ad every so often. And you can really get a ton of exposure. And what happens now is people start tagging their friends in this, and like at this person, at that person. And if I really wanted to spend the time, I probably could go back and reach out to every single one of these people. And it's a good thing to do, because you can, for $50, you can't do anything in the newspaper. Here they estimate, in this area for $50, you can hit about 3,000 to 7,000 people in a 2-day span. So I think that is, and I think that cost is going to go up, because it's super effective. That's other than social media, I just think talking about it with your clients is half the battle. Bringing it up and saying that you do have a presence there and that kind of thing.
So Matt, just talk about just lessons learned you talked about early on about business opportunity missing, and I will repeat over and over again, I know I've said to Joe that you're going to kick yourself in the first year or 2 years, that there's going to be people that bought that you thought would have gone with you, not just because of Matt's reason, but also in addition to that, because they just really didn't look at you as a professional, or didn't even know you were really in the business, just in general. But Matt, just from a buyer standpoint, just in terms of getting them to work with you, or what do you think, when someone calls you on the phone, what are you trying to accomplish when you're calling in on one of your ads, one of your listings, or if a seller's calling you, a potential seller on the phone? Let's start just with a buyer. Someone calls on your sign.
Sure.
Matt Nuzie's out there. Yeah.
For a buyer, when I meet with a buyer or that initial phone call comes in, I'm listening to see if they're serious. But I've been wrong before. When I was first starting out, I'd meet everybody. It didn't matter if you were pre-approved. I'd probably tell you, hey, are you pre-approved? I didn't want to scare them. okay? I had the time, I wanted to go meet with them, I wanted to